Who on earth would have believed grown adults would run around collecting little creatures made of stuffed beanbags? It became a national craze, and those little buggers weren't cheap either. The moral of the story there is that if a manufacturer can create a collecting demand for a product that serves no useful purpose, had a unique, sometimes odd look about them, and you can't even eat or invest it, then how much more can you spur the passion for collecting for items that even have additional reasons to buy? Obviously, collecting isn't just for beanie babies or antiques, it's for everything and everyone. So, what's the strategy here? So even if you are selling bumper stickers or watches, it doesn't matter. You can use this strategy to increase your sales. Don't believe that just because one person has bought one model, it doesn't mean they may not be interested in other models. In fact, people who buy watches, for instance, will often buy several models and collect them for different occasions. Maybe they want a dress watch for when they are at a classy occasion. Maybe they want a fun and flirty one for parties and another more professional looking one for the office. You can sell them all three. Isn't that a great way to boost your sales? So, the thing you want to do for this strategy is to target your existing customers. That's right. This is a strategy that is going to bring out the collecting bug in those people that have already shown an interest in your products. In order to get people to start collecting them, you need to start highlighting the collectible nature of your product. Why would someone want to collect them? Who else is collecting them? Can you display them on a shelf? Are they great to own various styles? What are the benefits of collecting your products? If you ever watch QVC, you will see the way they tote many of their items as collectibles. They will take a call, and the person on the other line will tell them how much they love the product and they've bought several different models. Then they start listing either their pride in owning such a great collection and how good it makes them feel, or they start listing all the reasons for why owning many of them makes sense. So, what's the psychological trigger here? You would think that the act of collecting is stimulated because of greed, but it isn't. Collecting falls into its own psychological niche, whereby the collector receives a great deal of pleasure and pride from owning many different models of a particular item. It's not because they are unconsciously trying to save up for poor economic times, as in greed, because even, things that have no intrinsic function are collected and enjoyed by many people. So why do people collect things that may not even have a utility in their life? If you've ever collected pennies as a youngster, you know that collecting gives one a sense of achievement. Every new penny you find and fit into its pouch gives you the pleasure and a feeling of achievement. When the entire collection is done, you can also show that collection off to your friends for them to admire your achievement as well. In some cases, the history of uniqueness of the collection can also be a source of great pleasure for collectors. That's why people sometimes collect salt shakers in various styles, not necessarily because they need more than one set of salt shakers in their home. Instead, the uniqueness and variety of the pieces bring out great pleasure in the collector who becomes fascinated by each new variation they can add to their collection. The emotional investment in the collection grows as the collection grows. It becomes a big part of the collector's life and may even get a prominent position of display in the home. It becomes a large source of pride. And once the addiction sets in, the collector may not be able to help themselves and be purchasing new items that are far more expensive than when they first started, just to round out their collection. By that time, you almost don't even have to have a reason to sell a collector on a particular piece if the emotional impact of the piece screams out at them, must have. And that's the type of enthusiasm and excitement you want associated with your products because it will lead to residual sales that you can count on. So, how do you implement this effectively? It's funny, but this strategy takes a little setup to implement. If you think about it, why did you get into collecting pennies when you were a kid? Would you have done it if they didn't sell those neat little sleeves with all the dates on each slot that you need to collect and have a complete collection? So, part of implementing this strategy is to simply offer a display case that people can use to track which items they still need to buy to complete the collection and to give a little history of the entire collection. You can even offer limited quantities of a specific product and increase the collectible status of it. That way, you can even start by charging more for the product because it's a limited edition. This is one way to manipulate the perceived value while not really changing the intrinsic value due to the collecting strategy. Always remember to place the bug in your customer's ear that this is a collectible item. You can send them a display case for free with the purchase of more than one item in the collection. You can highlight how other collections you've offered in the past have increased in value in the secondary market. This will give the idea to your customer that they are buying something that will increase in worth and become an investment. Remember that what you're trying to build is excitement about each new model. By helping, people keep track of what's out there and when a new one comes along. So, giving each model its own unique identity will also stir up interest in collecting different models. This also helps people who may start to push the craze forward uh, when they buy in volume to resell, particularly if you happen to hit a fad. Then you can expect your collectibles to fly off the shelf like beanie babies. It also doesn't matter if your product is old and outdated if you're dealing with people who are collectors. If you remember the example of the old TRS-80 computers, many people now collect them as vintage items. Sometimes even the fact that something is old adds to its collectible appeal, as it becomes harder to find in our throwaway culture. This is why antiques appreciate in value, even though they may not be intrinsically valuable. Old glass bottles or teddy bears are excellent collectibles just for that reason. Bottles break and teddy bears rarely survive childhood. Those that do then become one of the few vintage of examples of the time period, and they are sought after by collectors for just that very reason. Even things with utility can become collectibles with the right framework due to the uniqueness of each individual item. For instance, when phone cards came out, they each had their own unique design. After you use the minutes on the card, some people still like the designs, so they collected them. However, as with anything that is used in collectible, the new, still packaged and unused item is worth more. That's why even if a person is buying something that has a utility, they may not necessarily even use it if they are collecting it. Think about what a boom it was for those phone companies to sell cards that had minutes that were never used. They sold a product with an intrinsic value in minutes that evaporated because people didn't want to ruin the value of the cards. Instead, they kept them in the packages and sold them as a collectible design and memorabilia. But even things that you may not consider to be highly collectible can be collected by somebody. For instance, old tools may seem like they are beyond their appeal, but gardeners may love the idea of having some vintage tools for display in their gardens as a historical and novel motif. Once you know you have a person who collects one of your items, you know that you have a potential to get them, to collect other items or items that you sell. For instance, if you have a subset of your customers collecting your watches, maybe they'd also like to collect cufflinks. Or if you can find a way to associate another collectible with a first, then you can start cross-selling those items. For instance, maybe you have someone who is collecting toy trains. Well, how many other toys do you have that are whimsical and cute enough to be collected? How about all the accessories that you can sell to toy train collectors? Don't they need little mini depots? How about different cabooses? How about books on the history of toy trains or the actual steam engines, on which they're modeled? These can be sold as collectibles too. The nice thing about creating a collection of products and a line of accessories is that you literally have people lining up to buy those items before they're even being put up for sale. That's right. Think about the software games like Mario Brothers. Those cute little plumbers had all sorts of versions of the game being sold with different complexities to them. You mastered one and you had to get the next one. That's how you establish a collection, by selling in series. You start with a few models and have some way to collect and display each item in the series. Then every time you create a new item for your collection, you simply send out notifications to all the people who have bought in the past from that collection. You don't have to go out and search out new customers. You don't have to constantly think up new products, justify modifying an existing one with different models. Uh, And you can even charge more when you create some limited edition collectibles for discriminating collectors. So, how do you time this strategy? This strategy takes a little planning to have a line of products that can be consistently promoted as the next must have item in your customer's collection. Even though anything is collectible by somebody, obviously some market niches are more wide open than others. You may be able to find someone interested in collecting old drafting tools, but it's highly likely that this isn't a very big batch of people. So do a little research on each of your items before you decide to try to employ this strategy. It will take a little planning so that when you're promoting the product, you are promoting in the right series and as a collectible from the start. You will find that some categories of products lend themselves well to this strategy and can increase your sales easily. Things like print, stamps, coins, vintage items, historical items, and art can be considered to have a wide appeal as collectibles. So if you sell any of those, you want to focus on developing a collection of products and even create displays that you can send to your customers to promote the collecting bug to take root. As such, this strategy should be implemented by you when you decide to market a particular class of products and should be, thought of as a long range strategy. It should be cross-sold on the back end of a sale anytime anybody makes a purchase from the collection by suggesting other items within the collection in between the time they have decided to buy one and confirmed the order. This can be just an extra page showing how the history of the collection is developed and other items people purchase with it. Or it can be placed as an advertisement on the order form, with a discount available for buying more than one in the collection. So, collecting is really a huge thing. It's a huge industry. And if you can somehow find a way to package your product line into this realm of collecting, you can really strike it big and you can strike it big really fast. And if your collection just happens to be one of those that goes viral and takes off, you'll have a huge hit and a huge winner. So take this strategy if it applies to you. It may or may not, but really look at your product line and see how this particular strategy makes sense for you. I can tell you from experience that I've had many colleagues in the past that loved watches, and they would have a watch for several different occasions. Almost any occasion. So they would have literally a display case of watches and not cheap watches, and they would have upwards of 20 different kinds of watches. And it wasn't just about the style, but it was about also collecting and having a different watch for each occasion too. So um, same with the memorabilia niche. I used to own a company, and that we just did autographed memorabilia. It was a huge, huge market. Unfortunately, the '07, '08 crash killed that company. But anyway, so collecting is very wide ranging, coins, all these different things, gold, and so on and so forth. So just look within your own product line and see if it makes sense to spur this collecting passion out of what you have. And if it does, roll it out. All right, that's it for this video. We'll see you on the next lesson.